Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty and I'm delighted to be joined today by Alison McConnell. How are you, Ali?
Very well, thank you. You?
Yeah, very well, very well. And remember, if you are watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You'll get notifications for the videos and all the other great content that appears on the website. So thank you for doing that. Straight into it, Alison. It's, Celtic in Hungary. No away fans, no Tom Rodgick, no Carol Starfelt. Hey, toffee, isn't it? A breeze, a Celtic win.
I think it'll be a tough night this evening. I think over the piece, I think Celtic won fairly comfortably at Celtic Park. I think it was quite a tough maybe opening. I think Joe Hart had a decent save in the early stages, but I thought Celtic were comfortable. I think it'll be a different kind of game tonight. I think Ferencvaros know that they really need to take something. They'll be fighting for their lives here. Ange seemed to suggest that Celtic had to win too, so I think it points towards a fairly open game this evening. I think one of the real frustrations for him is that he's never had an extended period of time this season with a settled team. I think it's just been in and out all the time. I think the performances of Carol Starfelt and Cameron Carter-Vickers have been good in recent weeks. I think they've grown in confidence the more they've played together, a couple of clean sheets. So I think it will be frustrating that he's now having to tweak it again. I think Stephen Welsh will probably come straight back in to the team. I know that Near Beaton could maybe go back there too, but I think I fancy Welsh to go in tonight. But yeah, I think it's just a case of trying to get a result. You've seen Celtic's performances this season in Europe. They have been quite open. I think there are defensive questions there, but I think equally they look like a team capable of scoring goals, and I say that while being mindful of what happened on Saturday. But I think from middle to front, they do have the weaponry to go and hurt teams, and I think you have to go into this game thinking about a win.
There's been two particular performances in Europe, Alison. I'm thinking of particularly the first half an hour in Betis and then the second half against Ferencvaros, where Celtic just cut loose and let rip, didn't they? And you know it's in Ange's makeup to do the same tonight, because he knows he needs a result, because obviously qualification after Christmas could hinge on it. You know, in either competition, Europa League or the other competition. So, you know, it's in his nature and it's in his DNA. He'll try and win.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think you know him well enough now. You know his philosophy. You know how he sets out his teams. You know how he wishes to play. The one thing I would say is that I would prioritise league duty this term if I were Celtic manager. I think that's the be-all and end-all, and I think that is primarily where he will be judged this season. I think Europa League and what comes after it is a bonus. I think everyone enjoys European football, and a prolonged spell in it, regardless of what competition that is good. I think it helps the development and growth of a squad and a team. However, I think the real focus has to be on league duty. I think that's I think that's really the bread and butter of this campaign today. And I think the fact it's only 4 points in the league means that, that for all that there have been blips in the road, they've not been irrevocable ones. I think Celtic are still in it and still fighting. But I do think that is a priority. Tonight's performance and result would be a bonus. And it remains to be seen just what personnel go out. But to take your point about that Seville first half hour when they played Betis, the Celtic were irresistible going forward that evening, and we've seen that in glimpses. I'm not sure it's always been sustained, but it's also been married to this defensive softness, which I think if you could balance that and get it right, which of course is like the golden ticket really, but if you can marry those two elements together, then Celtic become a fairly formidable prospect.
And also as well, Alison, one of the issues in the Betis game that wasn't really touched upon was Jota had a wonderful chance to make it 3-0 just after Celtic had scored the second. And they were, as you say, they were a bit gung-ho, but it was one of those nights where the gung-ho tactic worked, and had they scored that, I know it's ifs and buts, but it would have been interesting to see what happened had that gone in.
Yeah, I think it would have been a completely different game. I think 3-0's I'm stating the obvious here that 3-0 is a different scoreline from 2-0, but I think it affects the balance of the game differently. I think 2-0 is always tentative when you know that one goal changes it and can flip it so quickly. I think 3-0 is a bit different psychologically. But you're right. I think that the way that Celtic played and the way that they have the capability of playing from middle to front, I think should offer a level of confidence. But again, then you saw what happened subsequently.
Yeah.
I think there's still a feeling, I think, that in moments of adversity in games and when Celtic lose a goal, they seem to be stunned for a bit. It seems to take them a while to find their composure again and to steady themselves. And so often you've seen that they lose one goal, particularly in a European context, that they lose a goal and they lose a second very, very quickly on the back of it. And I think those are elements for concern. And I think there are areas that you really have to be working on. And I think that's why there will be real frustration about Carl Starfelt being out again, just when you're trying to build a steady team and you're trying to develop partnerships.
There's a defensive fragility there, there's no doubt about it. A couple of comments coming in. Rab McCune, think the next lineup will tell us how far Welsh is improving in training. Jim Stevenson cheering everybody up. Terrible away record, must improve. Can't disagree with that, Jim, despite the nature of the sentence. Ted says, just hope no more injuries tonight. The league is more important. You've touched on that already, Alison. It is. We all know that, yeah. Tony, a wee bit worried about Abada. He's not beating a man. If he plays, I am looking for a big performance from him. Yep, that's fair comment. And Simon Thomas says, Welsh in for me. Gives an additional heading option in the box. Don't disagree with that, Simon, sorry. And this is the big one for a lot of people. Will Forrest start over Abada? Now, yourself, Sean and myself put in our teams, Alison, and we all had the same team except one change. You had Abada in and myself and Sean had James Forrest.
It's a big one, isn't it? I thought quite hard about it. If I was picking the team, I think I would go with Forrest, purely because of what he offers you. I think he offers a creativity. He brings in assists. He brings in goals. He drives the team forward. He works incredibly hard defensively too. I think I would start him, but I do wonder if Ange Postecoglou feels as though he's fit enough. He's only just come off the bench. I think you have to factor in the fact that over the last year, he's played so little football. I think, he's been hindered significantly by injuries. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that he will be deemed fit enough to start, but time will tell.
Yes, well, I said Forrest should come in, and I'm hopeful that he maybe gives Forrest an hour to let him loose and see what he can do. I think Forrest gives you a better balance than Abada, certainly at the minute. But again, we've spoken about Abada for him maybe going off the boil. And Simon Thomas, David Bradley comes in and says, Forrest for me. Yep. Simon Thomas comes in and says, Forrest has better defensive actions. Yeah, that's possibly true as well. Kieran Nolan also comes in and says, very hard on the travelling fans being locked out once more. Bad way to treat the faithful. That could be a factor because Hungarian fans tend to be, shall we say, partisan, Alison.
I think the timing of the announcement is probably particularly irritating. If people have prepared to travel and have gone out and now are locked out of the ground, I think it is frustrating. I think, put it this way, it certainly doesn't help Celtic in any way. I think even last season you saw what happened when Celtic were without fans. I know there will be fans in the ground tonight, but obviously there won't be any Celtic supporters in there. I think it just has to be a case of trying to focus on the game. But I could see the frustration from a supporter's point of view. I think the late timing made that very unfair on people who have shelled out money to go. Yeah,
I think that's the unfairness of it all. It's pretty unpalatable for fans that have travelled out there and now know for certain that they won't get in, which is, as you say, the late timing of that. It's pretty poor, isn't it, in the extreme?
Yeah, absolutely. You can understand why people would be frustrated. I'm sure they'll make the most of the trip. I think Budapest is a beautiful place.
Oh, it's yeah.
It's gorgeous. So
yeah.
I'm sure they'll enjoy the sights along the Danube.
Yes, indeed. Now, Alison, you won't escape your notice that Celtic seem to be linked with every Japanese player because their season's coming to an end. And the next one, or another one being linked with Celtic, is Rio Hitati, a left back who has played at every youth international level, still waiting on his first international call up to the Japanese national side. But he's 23 and he has 2 titles and a Japanese Super Cup. So his army won the title the other day there, and he was crying, and everybody has taken that as being an emotional farewell. And Celtic are in discussions reputedly with Rio Hatate. So Ange's made no secret of the fact that he's going to delve back into the Japanese market, and I guess these are the players he's been scouting, and if they're half as successful, Kyogo, Celtic have won a watch.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think the success of Kyogo being able to transition so effortlessly will encourage him to go back into that market. I think it's a market in an area he knows. These are players he knows. Whether or not there's an element of 2 and 2 being put together, I think it's still a consideration. I think when you look at the number of players that have been linked with Celtic, but I don't think there's any question that it is an area you would look at. I think it makes sense. I think the manager understands these players. He knows these players. He knows how they would fit into the system he wishes to play. And obviously their campaign's now coming to a close. The January window's about to open here. I think stars align in that respect. And I think certainly you could expect additions in January. I think Celtic will sign players. I think we all know the left-back area has been a source of concern, if you like, for some time. I think there's been no secret that Celtic have been looking to bring in another full-back there, and I think there's an argument too for reinforcements dotted throughout the side. And I wouldn't be surprised to see someone else coming to the club from Japan. Now,
Hatate is, and the Celtic board will love this, a free agent in January, Alison, so that's another plus consideration for Celtic. But as you say, his expertise and knowledge of the market in the game in Japan, then if he's targeting these players, he's doing so for a reason, isn't he? He can see them fitting into the team and transitioning easily the way Kyogo did.
Yeah, and I think that is important. I think sometimes there are question marks over who's doing the signing and who's doing the identifying of players, and I think you see it at all clubs. Sometimes you wonder who was responsible for the player coming in when it seems as though they don't fit into the manager's style of play. So I think that's an important element. I think Ange Postecoglou has been fairly candid about going into a market that he knows in an area that he works in. I think he's referenced that a few times in the last few months. So, yep, I think that the fact that he's a free agent helps. It obviously comes down to more than just that when you have to break it down into salary and all sorts of things that go round about it. But it's also what you would have to say. It is an affordable market for Celtic largely. When you compare it to the European market, which is very difficult for Celtic to compete at times. This is an area where you could unearth players that we're not particularly familiar with here and bring them in to great effect in the way that Kyogo Furuhashi has come in.
Yep. David Brattle, I meant to run the one above it. Dermot 40 comes in and says, if Ange rates Japan for players he knows well and plays his football, that is good for us. What then happens when Ange leaves because of success? Will we crumble then? I think that's need a crystal ball for that one, Dermot. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing for Celtic that if he brings in more players and they're as successful as Kyogo, then the club will be successful. Whether or not Ange chooses to leave in the future, that's obviously his decision, isn't it? But let's bring them in first and see what happens. What do you think to that, Alison?
Yeah, absolutely. I think becoming a victim of your own success is the least of Celtic's worries at the minute. I think you just have to bring that success first. And football players are professionals. They work regardless of the manager. And I think if they are quality players like the likes of Kyogo, I think it must be a dream to work with for any manager. I think you look at his attitude and his application, his enthusiasm around the club. I think you can't imagine any manager having an issue with how he conducts himself and how he plays. So while there's a benefit to working with a manager who knows you and who understands how you play, I think in a professional level, I think it becomes irrelevant at some points if managers move on. And you simply continue to do your job, same as the rest of us in any work, in any field of work.
and Simon Thomas comes back in. A couple of more Japanese players will assist Kyogo as well. I happen to believe that. Now, another one that's been linked, and he's been linked for a while, is Maeda, who has 18 goals, 3 assists. He's a top scorer in the J1 league for Yokohama Marinos. Ange knows him well because I'm sure he brought him to Yokohama Marinos. And he's a striker, so can also help Kyogo. Now, the possibility, Alison, in January of having a Japanese trio there, and that's quite good if he brings them in and helps them all integrate with Kyogo already being here, isn't it?
It certainly helps in a cultural sense, although again I would say that I think Kyogo has tried very hard to assimilate into Scottish culture and into the team. I think he comes across as a bubbly wee fella. I think he's always kind of, he's high-fiving at the side of the pitch when he was injured, and he's picking up litter and he's way off the pitch, and I think you can see he's very well liked.
Rubbing Ralston's knee.
I think he's just
those kind of things.
he just comes across as a very affable, likeable guy, and I think you can see him trying hard. I don't know where he is, maybe in terms of the language and whatnot, but you can certainly see he's not aloof. He's not trying to stay within his own bubble. He's done his best to assimilate, and while it would probably be a help to him to have people from his homeland that maybe might help him out a bit, might help him feel a bit more at home, I don't think it's hugely necessary. I think it would be a bonus more than anything else.
Alison, if you can hear me, yep, back again. We seem to have gone off there, but no problem. But Simon Thomas comes in. Maeda's an exceptional player, lightning quick. David Bradley, that would be class. Rab McCune comes back and still needs 6 players in January. Backup goalkeeper, left back, number 6, number 8, number 10, and attacker. You don't want much.
That's a Christmas list here. That's a Santa list.
But that those 2 players in particular, Hatate and Maeda, seem to have caught the imagination of the Celtic supporters, though they seem to like them and like the thought of them being brought in, Alison. So I think Ange kind of knows what he's doing here when he's bringing these guys in from that market.
I think when you look at the attributes they have, you can see that it fits into his style of play, and you can see it fits into his philosophy. Whether or not that's enough to make it happen, we don't know. I think, but certainly speed and elegance on the ball and movement, these are all aspects of that fit perfectly into how he wishes the team to play. He wants to play on the front foot all the time. He wants to move the ball quickly all the time. And you have seen it in flashes this season. I'm not sure that it's been sustained over a period of time, but there have been points in games where Celtic have been pretty devastating. Maybe 20-minute periods or a half here and there where they've blown teams out the water. And I think what you have to look towards is doing that now on a consistent basis, and part of that will be in bringing in players that fit into that system. And I would say the manager's had one window. I think he probably needs at least 2 or 3, and I would say at least, to properly get the fit of players that he wants and to create this kind of style of football that he wants with the personnel that he's picked. You
can see the jigsaw coming together, but in Ange's mind, can't you? Players for certain positions. And as you touched upon there, that speed and acceleration moving forward, because from middle to front, they have been pretty devastating at periods, but not sustained over a whole game.
Of course, I think, and I do think it was always going to take time. I think it was quite a significant overhaul. I think what you would say too is that a number of players who featured last season have still had prominent roles to play. They're just maybe adapting to a new system and a new way of playing and a new way of coaching. And I think all of that does require a bit of patience, I think, but I do think you have seen glimpses of where it's going.
Now, Dermot Forty comes back, and these are kind of comments we like, Alison. If we can avoid dropping any more points till January, and we do bring in the Japanese players mentioned, I think Celtic will win the title. Go on, Dermot, that's better. I think that. And a good win, away win tonight in Hungary would be a nice way to end the bulletin, Alison. What do you think?
Indeed. I think certainly what happens in January might define whether or not Celtic go and win the title. I think if they have the financial resources there to do so, to bolster the team, to give people a lift, to strengthen areas of the pitch, to bring in players who are first team ready, who can go in and make an immediate impact, I think that could be the difference between winning the title or not.
And on that very upbeat and positive note, we'll cheer on Celtic to hopefully a victory in Hungary tonight in the Europa League, keep our qualification hopes alive. And as I say, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and myself and Alison's face will pop up in videos every now and again, and you'll read some wonderful quality content. And if you subscribe to the Celtic Way channel and support the club that you love. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for contribution, Alison. Thanks to all the commenters. Try to get through as many as we can. We always do. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.